Hello, my name is Matt Sachs, and I work for Cooperative Strategies, an educational planning firm assisting Omaha Public Schools with the elementary and middle school boundary planning process in South Omaha. Please watch this short presentation prior to taking the South Omaha Elementary and Middle School survey that can be found at boundary.ops.org. For a more in-depth presentation and discussion, we encourage you to attend the South Omaha Elementary and Middle School Open Community Meeting at South High Magnet on April 16th at 6 p.m. You may pause or rewind this video at any time to view the options or refer back to any of the data presented. This slide lays out the timeline for the opening of new schools and boundary changes in South Omaha. The new elementary school on the Fort Crook Road site will open in the 2021-22 school year. All boundary changes associated with the opening of this school will also take place in the 2021-22 school year. The new elementary school on the 10th and Pine site will open in the 2022-23 school year. All boundary changes associated with the opening of this school will also take place in the 2022-23 school year. The new middle school on the 42nd and Y site will open in the 2023-24 school year. All boundary changes associated with the opening of this school will also take place in the 2023-24 school year. This slide illustrates the process Cooperative Strategies and Omaha Public Schools are following for developing elementary and middle school boundary options in South Omaha, and ultimately a final recommendation for the school board to consider. Please note that a similar process for district-wide high school options is being run concurrently. The first steps taken were a series of internal meetings to understand the variety of programs and school options offered within Omaha Public Schools, collect data, and develop the data and tools to be used in the Boundary Committee meetings. At the Boundary Committee meetings, small groups of parents, students, teachers, and principals work together to develop initial boundary options to be considered by the focus groups and at the open community meetings. The focus groups were a series of small group meetings held with students, parents, staff, and community members to view the boundary options and provide feedback on the benefits and challenges of each option, as well as any additional data that might be needed before taking the options to the community at large. A series of open community meetings are being held to present and collect feedback on elementary and middle school boundary options in South Omaha and district-wide high school boundary options. The dates and locations of these meetings can be found at boundary.ops.org or at the end of this presentation. After collecting feedback from the community via the online survey and community meetings, additional work sessions will take place with OPS staff to review the community response and consider any adjustments that may need to be made before taking a final recommendation to the school board this summer. With the construction of 3 new schools in South Omaha, attendance boundaries are needed to create a home attendance area for each of these schools. In order to create these new attendance boundaries, the current attendance boundaries of 11 elementary schools and 3 middle schools in South Omaha may be impacted. In addition to creating attendance boundaries for the new schools, additional boundary adjustments were needed to better balance the neighborhood populations between existing schools. When creating or adjusting attendance boundaries, the boundary committees were given some parameters. Grade configuration. Currently in South Omaha, elementary schools range from K4, K5, and K6, and middle schools range from 5-8, 6-8, and 7-8. All options developed create a K5, 6-8 grade configuration to allow for more consistency and less confusion. The exception to this is Norris Middle School, which does not have the necessary capacity to become a full 6-8 school. Attempting to assign 100% of an elementary attendance area to one middle school. This allows whole populations to stay together from grades K through 8 if they choose to remain in their home attendance areas. Both live-in and enrollment populations were considered when developing attendance boundaries. Live-in population refers to the number of K5 or 6-8 Omaha Public School students living within an elementary or middle school attendance area, regardless of what school they may enroll in. Live-in numbers do not include students enrolled in private schools or attending another school district. The reason live-in numbers are used when developing attendance boundaries is to ensure that the number of students residing within a school's boundary is appropriate for the size of that school. We do not want to create attendance boundaries that would put a school over capacity if all neighborhood students chose to attend that school. Since some OPS students choose to attend a school not in their home attendance area, actual enrollment numbers were also provided to the Boundary Committee to help understand the net gain or loss of students at each school in South Omaha. Total area elementary school live-in population will be 83.8% of total elementary school capacity after new construction, also referred to as live-in utilization. Live-in utilization is the number of students living in a school's attendance boundary divided by the number of students that building can hold. Total area middle school population will be 93.5% of total middle school capacity after new school construction. These numbers were provided to show the best case scenario if the live-in population of all elementary and middle schools were balanced equally. Rather than attempting to create new or modify existing boundaries from scratch, unit zones were used. Unit zones are smaller geographical areas that Omaha Public Schools uses for boundary modifications and other additional analysis. The boundary committees were given the capability to move these unit zones between elementary and middle school boundaries and see what impact it had on live-in enrollment, utilization, and other demographic factors. There are 165 unit zones in the portion of South Omaha used in this elementary and middle school boundary process. One boundary option was created by each of the small groups working at the boundary committee meetings, for a total of 12 initial options. These 12 options were reviewed by Cooperative Strategies and Omaha Public Schools staff to help determine the 3 options that are being presented in this presentation and at the open community meetings. This map displays some of the analysis of the 12 small group options, displaying the unit zones that were assigned to the new 10th and Pine elementary attendance area by percentage of small groups. This slide provides an overview of the current elementary and middle school boundaries, enrollment, and utilization numbers in the South Omaha areas impacted by this boundary change process. The various shaded colors show the current elementary attendance zones. The black and orange dashed lines show the current middle school attendance zones. The blue squares represent the current elementary school sites. The black triangles represent the current middle school sites. The purple stars represent the current high school sites. The red diamonds represent the location of the new school sites. Here is the location of the new 10th and Pine Elementary School. This is the location of the new Fort Crook Road Elementary School. This is the location of the new 42nd and Y Middle School. And for reference, here's the location of the new high school at 60th and L. The maps on the following slides for options 1 through 3 will be formatted the same way. The K-5 live-in utilization ranges from a low of 49.1% at Gilder to a high of 131.6% at Castlear. If comparing live-in enrollment and utilization to actual enrollment totals, please note that Castlear is the only school in this area currently operating as a K-5. Gomez and Spring Lake operate as K-4 schools, and all remaining schools operate as K-6 schools. Ashland Park Robbins is the only school that does not feed a middle school at 100%, splitting between the Bryan and Norris middle school attendance areas. Middle school live-in utilization ranges from 73% at Mars to 192.1% at Bryan. The addition of 6th grade is the reason for such a high percentage at Bryan. When looking at the tables on this slide and the following slides for each of the three options, the red numbers indicate utilization numbers above 100%, the yellow numbers indicate utilization above 90%, and the green numbers indicate utilization below 90%. This slide displays the first option for elementary and middle school boundaries in South Omaha. Both current and proposed K-5 live-in and utilization numbers are provided to show the impact on each attendance zone. In this option, all elementary schools will feed 100% to one middle school. As you see in the proposed live-in utilization column, all elementary schools have a live-in utilization below 90%, except for Spring Lake Magnet at 96.3%. Middle school utilization ranges from 87.3% at Norris to 98.7% at the new 42nd and Y Middle School. The over 11% gap in utilization at the middle schools is a direct correlation of having all elementary schools feed 100% at the middle school level. Also provided is the number of students who would change home attendance areas in this option. These numbers are based on current student residence if all boundary changes took place today and do not estimate what the impact might be in the years in which the boundary changes take place. Option 1 would change the home attendance area of the most number of students. Please note that a minimum of approximately 900 K-5 students and 850 6-8 students would need to change home attendance areas to put the new schools at an acceptable live-in utilization. This slide displays the second option for elementary and middle school boundaries in South Omaha. In this option, 3 elementary schools will split at the middle school level. These schools are Ashland Park Robbins, Gilder, and Fort Crook Road. In this option, Castlear has a live-in utilization of 101%. All remaining elementary schools have a live-in utilization below 90%, except for Pawnee at 90.4% and Spring Lake Magnet at 94.5%. Middle school utilization ranges from 89.5% at the new 42nd and Y Middle School to 95.8% at Norris. Better balance of middle school utilization is achieved by splitting some of the elementary schools. This option changes the home attendance area of the fewest number of total students based on current student residence. This slide displays the third option for elementary and middle school boundaries in South Omaha. In this option, 3 elementary schools will split at the middle school level. These schools are Bancroft, Chandler View, and Indian Hill. All elementary schools have a live-in utilization below 90%, except for Pawnee at 90.4%, Fort Crook Road at 95.3%, and Castlear at 98.4%. Middle school utilization ranges from 89.8% at the new 42nd and Y Middle School to 96.7% at Norris. Again, better balance of middle school utilization is achieved by splitting some of the elementary schools. This option changes the home attendance area of the fewest number of 6 through 8 students based on current residence. Here is the schedule of open community meetings taking place through the beginning of May. We encourage you to attend the South Omaha Elementary and Middle School Open Community Meeting at South High Magnet on April 16th at 6 p.m. for further discussion of the boundary options presented in this video presentation. We are also conducting a similar district-wide boundary process at the high school level and encourage you to attend any of the high school boundary open community meetings listed on this page. Thank you for your time and your involvement in this process.